Freddy Adu. We have to start here. In 2004, Freddy Adu was on the cover of everything. He signed his first professional contract at 14. 14 years old. People were calling him the next Pelé, and they meant it. He was fast, technically gifted, and had this instinct in tight spaces that you simply cannot coach into a player. But somewhere between the hype and the reality, something broke down. He bounced through 17 clubs across 10 countries. Portugal, Greece, Brazil, Finland. Each move a step down from the last. Each headline a little sadder than the previous one. He never became what everyone, including himself, believed he would be. The most hyped teenage footballer in American history retired quietly, without fanfare, without a defining moment. The potential was real. What happened to it? Nobody has ever fully explained. Adriano. If you watched football in the early 2000s, you know what Adriano's left foot could do. Inter Milan, Brazil national team. A left foot that felt genuinely unfair. His strike against Argentina in the 2004 Copa America is still one of the most violent shots ever recorded in international football. Then, his father died. And Adriano, by his own admission, never recovered. He stopped training properly. The weight came on. The pace went. He would disappear from training sessions without explanation. Clubs didn't know what to do with him. He tried comebacks, multiple times. But the player who terrorized defenders in 2004 and 2005 was gone. What makes Adriano's story different from most on this list is that he's told us exactly what happened. Grief destroyed him from the inside, while the world kept expecting him to perform. He was a mental health crisis in a football kit, and nobody around him knew how to handle that. Ricky van Wolfswinkel. This one's a bit different, but it belongs here. In the summer of 2013, Ricky van Wolfswinkel arrived at Norwich City for around £8.5 million. He'd been brilliant at Sporting CP. Goals, assists, link-up play, the complete package. At Norwich, he scored in his very first Premier League match, and then he never scored again. Not once. The entire season. He played, he tried, but something about the environment, the pressure, or simply the timing, was completely wrong. He went back to Europe and quietly rebuilt a decent career. But that Premier League chapter reads like a ghost story. One goal, one season, gone. Darius Vassell, England international, Aston Villa starter, a player with genuine pace and a knack for big-game goals. Vassell had a moment in the early 2000s where it looked like he could become a reliable, long-term option for England. He had the athleticism, he had the finishing. But there's a detail about Darius Vassell that almost nobody talks about. Suffering from a painful blood blister under his toenail, he reportedly attempted to treat it himself at home using a drill. The resulting infection was serious enough to require surgery and cost him significant time on the pitch. That injury changed the trajectory of his career in ways that are almost impossible to measure. He never quite rediscovered the form or the consistency he'd shown before. It's one of the stranger footnotes in Premier League history. A career derailed not by a tackle, not by a transfer, but by a decision made alone at home. Park Chu-young. In South Korea, Park Chu-young was considered a generational talent. Goals at club level, goals internationally. A move to Arsenal under Arsene Wenger, who didn't sign players without reason. At Arsenal, he made 3 appearances across 2 seasons. 3. When a manager with Wenger's eye for talent signs you and then barely plays you, something is deeply wrong. Either with the player's development, with the club's fit, or with circumstances nobody publicly disclosed. He returned to Asia, his career continued. But the version of Park Chu-young who was supposed to announce himself to European football never really arrived. The Arsenal chapter is one of those transfers that feels like a missing page in a book. Bojan Krkić. At 15, Bojan Krkić was being compared to Messi, not by fans, by people inside Barcelona. He came through La Masia, broke youth scoring records, made his first team debut at 17, and in his first full season, scored 10 goals in La Liga. 10 goals, 17 years old, at Barcelona. But the weight of expectation crushed him in a way that became very public. He has spoken openly about suffering panic attacks so severe that he would struggle to leave his house. Anxiety that made football feel impossible on some days. He bounced between loan moves, Roma, AC Milan, Ajax, Stoke City, never finding a place where everything clicked at once. He's one of the clearest examples in modern football of what happens when a teenager is handed expectations designed for a grown man. The talent was never the question. Luke Moore. Less internationally known, but worth including. Luke Moore came up through Aston Villa's academy alongside players who would go on to have long Premier League careers. He had pace, movement, and looked like a player with a serious future. And then a series of injuries, combined with inconsistent game time, gradually pushed him down the football pyramid. He never got a sustained run at the top level, never had 18 months of consistent football to prove what he could do when fully fit and trusted. Some careers don't end dramatically, some just get quietly reassigned by circumstance. That might be the saddest kind. Jonathan Woodgate. Here's a player who was genuinely, legitimately world-class when fit. Real Madrid signed Jonathan Woodgate. That alone tells you everything about his ceiling. But his body simply would not cooperate. His Madrid debut was delayed by almost a year due to injury. When he finally played, after months of build-up and expectation, he scored an own goal and was sent off in the same match. He dealt with leg injuries, muscle problems, and setbacks throughout his entire career. There were seasons where he played fewer than 5 matches. The cruel part is that when Woodgate was on the pitch and healthy, he was genuinely elite. Composed, intelligent, dominant in the air. The football world only got to see fragments of what he actually was. Cherno Samba. Younger football fans might know this name from a different place. Cherno Samba became a legend on Football Manager, the video game, where his stats made him one of the most sought-after strikers in the game. Hundreds of thousands of people built careers around him in their save files. In real life, he was a prolific striker in Gambia. Serious talent. A player clubs in Europe did look at, but the opportunities that should have come never fully materialized. The trials didn't lead to contracts. The contracts didn't lead to sustained careers at higher levels. He became more famous in a simulation than in the sport itself. There's something genuinely melancholy about that. Cesc Fabregas. This one needs context. Fabregas did have a successful career. That's not the story here. The story is what he lost. He joined Arsenal at 16. By 21, he was carrying that entire midfield. Playmaking at a level that very few teenagers in football history have matched. But those years, 16 to 25, happened at a club in transition, without the trophies his talent deserved, in a system that asked everything of him before he was fully formed. When you watch footage of Fabregas at 19, 20 years old, the vision and the passing weight are already at the level of a seasoned professional. What he could have been in a different structure, with better support around him during those years, is a version of his career we never got to see. Some disappearances aren't physical. Some are about what a career could have been versus what circumstances allowed it to be. Marc-Vivien Foé. This one is different from every other name on this list, and it needs to be said carefully and with respect. Marc-Vivien Foé was a Cameroonian midfielder who played for clubs including West Ham, Manchester City, and Lyon. He was physically powerful, technically sound, and by 2003 was considered one of the better midfielders in his position. In June 2003, during a FIFA Confederations Cup semi-final, he collapsed on the pitch. He could not be revived. He was 28 years old. The investigation revealed an undetected heart condition, something that had been there, invisible, the entire time. His number 23 was retired by Manchester City. His story doesn't fit neatly alongside the others on this list because his disappearance from the sport wasn't a mystery or a controversy or a career decision. It was a reminder that sometimes the most devastating exits have nothing to do with form or pressure or transfer decisions. Sometimes it's just unbearably, unfairly final.